There you go, Super Talk Mississippi. Mississippi Outdoors Radio is on the air, and it's as always brought to you by the Foundation for Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks, and we're ready to go here today as we get Adam Butler, always to my left over here with us, and he's with the Wildlife Bureau, and we got a lot to do today because bow season opens tomorrow.
Yep, got a lot to cover, JT. We're going to have William McKinley on. He's our deer program coordinator, talking about what to expect for deer season. Archery, which opens tomorrow. Hard to believe. Going to be mid-90s.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough.
It's coming next week. They say we're going to get a cool down next week.
We got our guest of the year, Megan Frederick's going to.
She is.
She always does well. So
Megan's got some big news today.
Yeah, she's got some. She's going to roll out in her shop.
Do I need to get the breaking news sounder out for you? I mean, is it this big?
Let's do it.
I feel it. Yeah.
You do? You feel it? Okay. All right. Are you ready?
Yep.
Here we go. Everybody, hang on. Let me get this thing warmed up here. Everybody, hang on.
Wait. This is awesome.
Oh.
I like it.
I'm gonna need that every time I'm on the radio.
Yeah, Megan's got some hunter ed
you go.
news that we're going to cover.
We're starting now.
You take
Oh,
over.
good. Okay.
That's your intro.
All right, so
Ladies and gentlemen, Megan Frederick, the Hunter Education Coordinator, here with us with breaking news on Mississippi Outdoors Radio.
So we are very excited to announce that tomorrow, October 1, starting at 10 a.m., we will have a full online Hunter Ed certification for residents that are 16 and above.
This is big news.
This is big news. People have wanted this for quite some time. A lot of other states have started moving in that direction. So I think I kind of alluded to it the last time I was on the show, and we're looking at it and trying to figure out the ins and outs of how to make it work with our system. But starting tomorrow at 10 a.m., you will be able to take your entire Hunter Ed course online if you're 16 and above, and it will give you a card at the end. You can print it out. You can take a photo of it because we'll accept a digital copy, and then you're done. Of course, I love a good sit-down classroom class, but we are moving with the times, and we want to be on the up and up. So here we go.
And can I say this? Let's face it. The world we live in now, people don't have time, and they don't want to even think about making time
I agree.
to go sit in the classroom. But they'll sit at their house in front of a computer and take the class right there and won't think two shakes about it.
That is true. And we know schools are working on the same way with online courses. We do online courses in law enforcement to advance. So that's just the way it works. And so Hunter Ed is now catching up.
I'm sure this is something people have asked for a long time, huh?
It has. We've done the partial online with the 3-hour in class, and that's still available for those that are under 16.
So what does this mean, Megan?
This
whole
means
thing, because we've had some calls like.
Oh, yeah.
As simple as it may sound.
I have explained it quite a few times this morning.
So this means
Okay.
I don't have to go to a class anymore if I desire not to.
One more time. If you are a resident and you are 16 years or older, you can take your entire Hunter Ed course online. At the end of that course, you will receive your card. You can print it out. You can take a picture of it with your phone. We will accept a paper or digital copy, as will our vendors that sell the Mississippi hunting license. If you are under 16 and would like to take the online course, you still can, but you still will be required to take the 3-hour in-class portion to finish it out. Or anybody who wants to can still take a free sit-down class with one of our volunteer instructors or conservation officers that teach the class.
So we're not going to cancel all the classes that are set up this fall.
No. Those
People
are all
can still
still
go.
in play. You go to our website just like before under Outreach and Education, click on the map, make a profile, sign up for your class.
It's going to be great I know a lot of adult hunters who have never hunted before or never been through. I don't know if intimidated is the right word, but they don't necessarily want to go to the class that have a lot of youth sitting there. So
it's
going to
be
great
beneficial for
them.
the late night project people that forget at the last minute and they're
Yes, those that are hunting the next morning.
Right.
Give yourself some time though. This is not a 30-minute deal. It's going to take you several hours to complete. Does not have to be completed in one sitting, but give yourself some time. Don't wait till the night before your big hunt.
I think this is the way to go. I mean, it just is.
I agree. It is the way to go.
It just is. It's what it is, and it's the world we live in. I call it the microwave popcorn society that we live in. Is we want everything now. We don't want to have to wait.
Yesterday.
Yeah, we don't want to have to wait for the class to start. I don't want to have to go anywhere. And it's just the way. It's the way society's changing. You can look at it in any way you want to look at it. You can look at the NFL stadiums with empty seats now, the SEC venues with empty seats, or concerts, or theaters, everybody are dealing with this. The fact that people, with the technology that we have today, I mean, for goodness sakes, people get their groceries brought to their house now. It's just the technology and the world that we're embracing it.
I agree, and I don't want Mississippi to be last on this list. So
and another side of it too, Megan. I mean, the class could be hindering some people from doing it. Man,
we agree.
I don't got time to do that. I'm not going to do it, so I just won't go hunting. So this might bring more people to the table.
We're waiting, and we hope so. I want to see what some numbers look like a month from now.
Well, that's awesome news. Thank you.
In that vein, JT, in the technology vein, I want to also plug our WMA check-in app, which is now live and downloadable both for Android or iPhone. So just like you're talking about, that's going to save people time. People who are hunting our wildlife management areas now don't have to check in at the physical check station. So, depending on the size of the area or the area you prefer to hunt on a given WMA, it may be out of your way to go by one of those check stations. You don't have to do that anymore. You can sign in remotely on the mobile app there and do everything you need to do there. For those who still want to do it the old school way, though, we are going to have check stations on WMAs, one per WMA that will have the old cards and everything. But this app will hopefully help a lot of folks be more efficient with their time getting to and from their deer stand.
C-Spired text line, JT, what about the shooting part of the course? That's been
optional since 2013.
Yeah.
So
let's see. Donald Oxford said, I wanted my 9-year-old to take Hunter Ed's course online. Could he? I want him to take it mainly to get ahead on safety, not the certificate. 9-year-olds still have to do some classroom, huh?
So we only certify at age 10.
Okay.
So a 9-year-old can go sit in a Hunter Ed class, but they won't be certified till age 10.
Okay.
We feel the information just a little bit too much until you're about 10.
Well, there you go. All right, what else we got, Adam Butler?
Well, we've talked about it for I guess the last month. The South Delta deer regs, the flood over there caused a lot of concern for the deer population, and so we looked at how to best address those concerns. And last week the commission met and the South Delta deer regs went final. So the final dates will be October the 15th through January the 31st, and that is for both public and private land, which is not tremendously different from what it's always been. The difference will be the bag limit has been lowered, so the bag limit over there will be 2 bucks and 2 does. So that, we've talked about it, for several weeks now, had the proposed regs in. Those regs are now final. So that's what it is, October 15th through January the 31st.
And there was a lot of feedback from the proposed rules that initially we're going to close the season January 5th, and there was a lot of feedback, people wanting to push it back to January 31st, and the commission heard that.
Right, it's one of those cases where public comment.
Right, and that's why you have the 30-day proposed rule.
That's right.
So we can get the feedback from the people out there, and they listened to it, and they pushed back to January 31st. I think that was a good move.
We're going to be continuing to monitor the situation over there. That flood being unprecedented, it's hard to know, what the long-term implications are. One of our first steps of really figuring that out. A lot of our staff spent some time last week putting out trail cameras. We're going to be doing a whole big region-wide trail camera survey across the entire South Delta, looking at deer densities post-flood and all of that. So that's something that our folks were doing last week, getting some cameras out, and hopefully that'll give us some data to better understand the impacts of the flood.
And squirrel season opens tomorrow. Dove reopens in the South Zone this Saturday. So
we're going to talk about archery here in a minute, but don't forget squirrel season also opens tomorrow. I know it doesn't feel like it should be, but it is October the 1st, 97 degrees.
All right. Well, Megan, thank you for coming in to see us and giving us that great information about the online hunter education course. I guess just go to the website, mdwfp.com.
Tomorrow, 10 a.m., everything will be updated and
That's awesome.
ready to roll.
That is awesome news. Thanks for being here today, okay?
Thank you.
And great news there. Give you a little bit more convenience there, folks. Now with you, as we bring William McKinley in here, the Deer Program Coordinator, and it's rite of passage tomorrow here in the state of Mississippi, William.
It's time, JT, but it sure doesn't feel like it outside.
Not right now.
Not yet.
Well, I was just say, what's the forecast for the 2019 deer season? I guess you'd say after you get the updated forecast, I believe we're going to get a little relief starting next week.
It looks that way. The long-range forecast is looking like finally a break from the heat, but we've had a wet year. I know it's not wet right now, and people are struggling wanting to plant food plots, and those that have planted, they're up and they're struggling. And
well, I feel sorry for somebody that has planted.
Yeah. It's either lying there dormant or it's up and possibly dying due to the drought.
Or either the birds got it.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Overall, the deer herd's in pretty good shape. Mm-hmm. We had a wet year early on during antler growth time. The pictures I'm seeing from trail cameras are showing what are very clearly above average antlers over most of the state, for most of the state. Now, we got to take exception to the flood-impacted area along the Mississippi River and the South Delta, and it's going to be below average this appearing over in that part of the world, but that's due to the flood impacts that lasted most of the summer.
That's right. That's right. I've seen some pretty deer too, man. I mean, I hadn't looked at a lot of cameras, but the deer I've seen and the bucks I've seen have been tremendous. That is for sure. Just tremendous.
And, we've seen some drops in harvest the past couple of years. Part of that was due to some regulations that we had put into place that reduced antlerless harvest on both suspended it on public lands and reduced bag limit on privates. And we saw some pretty major drops in the deer harvest, and that has led to more deer being left out there. It's a lot of deer on the landscape in most of the state right now.
Mm-hmm. And we got some changes in the regulations this year as well.
Yes, probably more changes than we've seen in several years. So in most of the state, the Northeast, the East Central, the Southwest, and the Delta, not South Delta zones, the bag limit has increased from 3 does, 3 antlerless deer, to 5 antlerless deer. In the Southeast zone, that has stayed at 2 antlerless deer. And in the South Delta zone, as Adam Butler mentioned earlier, it's going to be 2 antlerless deer and 2 bucks there. For the rest of the state, the buck bag limit is 3, as it has been for a lot of years. But there is one big change in that. Yep. And one of your 3 buck bag limit may be any antlered buck this year. Mm-hmm. So
why is that? Do we know why they did that?
Well, there's a multitude of reasons. One is disease management. And in the CWD world, we know that managing that disease, for years we have made 1-year-old bucks illegal for adults to harvest. We're not telling people they have to shoot one. We're just making the opportunity that they can shoot one if they choose to. So for somebody who only gets a few days a year to hunt, it gives them an opportunity to shoot a buck. It doesn't just allow the kids opportunity. The kids can still shoot all 3 of their 3 buck bag limit as any antlered deer. Mm-hmm. But from a disease management, from a biological aspect, when we first put forth the spread and main beam criteria, this was something we wanted then. And it didn't get put into place then, but I think it'll be a good thing. I think we're trying to get more hunters into the woods. We've seen that decline in hunter numbers and in harvest, and hopefully it'll get more deer harvested, more deer brought to our CWD drop-off locations, and we'll see some benefit from this.
Because within a few of the positives, we found some young bucks.
We sure have. In fact, the first one we found in Marshall County was a 1-year-old. The first one we found in Pontotoc County was a 1-year-old, and that's your dispersers. So they leave. They go for miles to form a new area to live in. It's kind of nature's way of preventing inbreeding.
Yeah.
The bucks leave, and the young bucks leave, find a new home, while the does tend to stay put. So we want to get a few more of those deer in the sample statewide.
What about I know we haven't been doing any sampling per se, But I haven't heard. I mean, I know you're still checking. We haven't heard of no new instances of any new cases of CWD, has it?
We haven't found any new ones lately. We've sampled a few deer over the summer. We're responding. In fact, just this morning we had 3 sick deer called in just while I was at the office for those couple hours. So we've had folks responding to those today, and we encourage people, if you see an animal that is not acting right, that's acting sick, please give us a call, and we'll try to get somebody out there as soon as possible.
But no new cases that we know of?
Not yet, and I hope it stays that way.
Well, don't we all? Don't we all? I think everybody in this room would agree with that. What about, we've been talking about CWD, but also blue tongue is something that we deal with on a regular basis. It comes and goes over the years. They'll build up immunity, and then it goes away, and then it comes back. Or also, what is it, hemorrhagic disease?
Yes, epizootic hemorrhagic disease, just commonly called blue tongue. And we're seeing a little of that this year, but overall, it's been a pretty light year on it. In fact, I was expecting, because the disease tends to run on about a 3 to 4 year cycle, we were kind of up for a heavy year of it, but that's not happening. We're getting a few reports here and there. People will call in, they found a deer in water, they found a deer in a pond, and most often that deer is going to be a hemorrhagic disease deer, a blue tongue deer. They develop a high fever. They go to the pond. It's internal bleeding that's happening, hence the hemorrhagic part of the name, and they end up dying in that area, and people find them. Quite often it's too far gone to test, but we still want to know about them, and we record that every year, the number of suspects.
That's a viral thing, isn't it?
It is, and it's transmitted by those little gnats that bite you this time of year. The same little gnats, little midge, move it from deer to deer, and you cannot get it. So,
but unlike the CWD, it's not one that's 100% fatal for the deer. Just because they have blue tongue, it's not a given that it's a death sentence.
Good point, Adam. We've tested deer and looked at different strains and seen deer that have had all 7 strains of hemorrhagic disease and lived through it. So that means they've had it 7 times and lived through it. So in fact, deer in the South tend to have a lot of built-in immunity, and it's seldom fatal. We think it kills around 5% of the deer, up to 10% in localized areas annually.
Well, and that, like we said, something that comes around every year or every several years, and that is out there for us, and folks want to know it. Folks, again, people are asking the question: if feeding spreads the disease, why do we allow it at all? Seems like feeding in legal feeding areas would help spread it. Should an infected animal venture into this legal feeding area? We talk about that. We have talked about that. We are aware of that.
Yes.
We are all aware of that. But Adam, William, or Chris, none of us can do anything about that. That's not up to us. That would be up to the commission or the legislature. So,
correct.
And if you feel that way, then I suggest that you make sure you let them know that. That would be what I would do. If that's the way that you feel about that. Now, I've seen some pictures about tuberculosis. This has kind of been into the news. There was a case of the humans getting tuberculosis from a deer dealing with it, huh?
Yes, I heard about that. And, the only place that tuberculosis is known that I know of where it's found in a free-range deer herd is in northern Michigan.
Okay.
And, yes, it is there. It is a threat. It is something that humans can contract. We've tested several deer over the years for TB in Mississippi. I've sent off a lot of blood samples. We've never had anything confirmed except for an avian case one time, bird TB, which will not transmit through, was not that big of a concern. Still not sure how that deer got that disease, but it's something that if hunters were to see, it'll be nodules inside the chest cavity. If they see little pencil eraser-shaped nodules when they open that deer up to clean it, they need to back up, wash their hands very thoroughly, and give us a call ASAP. I don't expect to find it.
Okay. Well, and I know how that was. It was a clickbait Twitter news story that was out there that was running around, and it had nothing to do with Mississippi.
Right.
Where they were talking about that. And I think they were actually talking about, where'd you say, Michigan?
Northern Michigan, yeah. Yes.
And that was where they were citing that. But on Twitter, they get these clickbait stories wanting the clicks, and I think that's where that actually came from. and why people were concerned with it. All right, William McKinley, we'll continue with more with you. We'll talk more about CWD and tips how to harvest deer early in the season. William McKinley, Deer Program Coordinator, we got to continue with you, man, and we'll get to it. Let's start off what you want to talk about real quick so we don't forget.
Well, we definitely wanted to talk about Game Check being ongoing this year. It just finished a successful Game Check season, our first one for our wild turkey, and we're asking hunters to go in and report their harvest. Do it on the app or report it online. The app's going to be the easiest way, the MDWFP app. We need to have this county level data. We need to be able to monitor our diseases impacting our herd in different areas, such as CWD in North Mississippi, where we know we have CWD. Is it having an impact? We need those numbers, and I stress that's a tool that we currently don't have in our toolbox, and it's not. We need it very badly. So we're going to ask hunters to please go in, report that harvest statewide, and let us know how many deer are getting harvested in each county of this state.
I wish it was mandatory, but we haven't been able to get that done yet, but I do hope people will do that. All right, CWD, what are the plans for this year regarding CWD?
Well, we've set a goal of 10,000 samples. That would have seemed very lofty a couple of years ago, but just this past season we got 8,000. So I think we'll be able to reach that goal, but we need hunters' help to do that. So we've got 36 drop-off locations across the state, drop-off freezers. They worked very well last year. Hunters could drop by, leave the head of the animal, of the deer that they've harvested, fill out a card, and then they could check their results online. For the ones that were positive, we called them. They didn't learn they were positive by looking online. So we gave them a personal phone call, but that's our goal for this year. If hunters are concerned, there will be a freezer somewhere in their locality within a reasonable drive of where they are.
And, of course, that's very important for you to do. It helps y'all, and, of course, it helps you, lets you know that your deer is safe to eat and consume and all that good stuff. So we want folks to make sure you do that. So what do you think, man? Are we got more deer? We got less deer? What about the herd? Is it bigger? Is it smaller?
Well, you know, we do a statewide herd estimate, and we do a technique called population reconstruction, where we actually go backwards and we look at how many deer we had a few years ago based on the age structure, what we're harvesting now. Those numbers are showing a slowly declining deer herd. I go back to that Game Check. Where is that decline happening? Is it statewide? We have regulations that apply in large-scale regions, or is the decline more localized to a few counties? We can't pick that out without having county-level data. So we've seen harvest decline for a few years. It's been on a declining trend, especially since 2010. We're seeing the population decline some. Is it due to disease? Is it due to the occurrence of wild pigs, which, by the way, exceeded deer harvest again last year for the second year and well exceeded it last year? What impact is that having? We're not exactly sure. So overall, the population's healthy, but it is slowly declining, and we'd like to figure out where so we can address it.
Really? Wow. And that is so. What about this? Now it's going to be 95 tomorrow, opening day for bow season. How in the world? First of all, you're going to have your thermocell and deep woods off and everything else you could do to get out in the woods. But I've seen deer moving. I mean, I'm watching them move.
Yes, deer are. They have been moving, and hunting water holes, a little pond in the woods when it's hot. It's dry. Those early season openers, when we're in somewhat of a drought, that tends to be one of the best methods of chasing deer, because they're going to come to water this time of year. So that's going to be my tip out there. When I go hunting toward the end of this week, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be sitting over a water hole. And once it rains, and that water hole bets off. But I will say there's what appears to be a very good acorn crop. I was in the Delta last week. Adam mentioned that camera survey that we're starting over the flood-impacted area. I was out putting cameras out for 3 days last week, and I would put this as one of the top acorn crops I've seen in the Delta ever in my career. So I've been on for almost a couple of decades now. I've never seen acorns like this in the Delta, and that's going to mean that when they really start falling, deer activity is going to be lessened. So they're going to have a lot of food out there. So hunters are going to have to get in and find those trees that are dropping close to cover. But a lot of acorns already falling.
Tom's got a great question. Ask the guys if they considered seeing if we could partner with MSU Extension to put freezers at county offices.
And we have put a few freezers at a few county offices across the state.
Okay.
So we are, when we put these freezers out for drop-offs, we've looked at where we need one. We try to find the best area in that locality or in that 2 or 3 county region, and then we also have to take into account people to run that freezer that are available to go take the heads out, let them thaw, and then come back the next day and sample them. So we're 36 across the state, but that's a good idea, and we've already jumped on that. We have a few
just looking at the map, I'd encourage folks to go to the website and look at the map, but I'm going to say, just eyeballing that map, pretty much everybody in the state should be within a 20, 30-minute drive of a freezer.
Yes, that was our
goal. They're very well distributed across the state.
All right. Let's see. In hunting a known CWD area, can you transfer a harvested deer to a non-CWD area, or does it have to be deboned like an out-of-state kill?
Deboned.
It has to be deboned, and we highly encourage people, go to our website, mdwfp.com, look at the CWD zones. We're now talking about all or parts of 22 counties that they cannot leave that zone. They can move within the zone with a whole deer or a whole head, but they can't leave that zone. They can't take a deer from that zone out of state. That's illegal. Or to bring a deer from out of state into Mississippi. That is also illegal.
And also think about this, too. If you kill a deer in a CWD zone, you got to take the head to a drop-off in the CWD zone as well.
That is correct.
Yeah, you can't bring it back and do that. So that's the other part of it.
And you'll notice a higher percentage of freezers, a higher number of freezers per counties within the zone to try to address some of that, JT.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's going to be some getting used to. There's no doubt about it, and we'll have to continue to get used to that as we continue to fight this problem we have, which is
it changes the way we manage deer in our state, as it has in every state that has been found, but it doesn't stop us from managing deer. Mm-hmm. And we still need hunters in the woods, and it's going to change things a bit. It's going to take some getting used to, but we'll get there.
All right, William McKinley, just about another minute or so we have here. So, man, I couldn't imagine going out in this stuff right now. Can you imagine the ticks and stuff that are out?
For anybody that does go, a tip, because I used to go out just when it was this hot, and I've been hunting when it was 95 degrees. Take some ice with you. If you're lucky enough to harvest a deer, you're going to need to get that carcass cool quickly. So you need to pre-plan a little more than you would if it was a high of 70, for instance. Have some ice in the truck, have it in a cooler, get that deer field dressed. You may not normally field dress deer. A lot of people don't. You need to if you harvest a deer this week.
Okay. That's a good question. That is good. I didn't even think about that. You definitely need to do that. Is go ahead and get it gutted and ready to go, and get some ice in the carcass and get it kind of cooled down. Mm-hmm. That's a great point. I never thought about that. Really didn't. All right, it's here, October 1st tomorrow, and archery season underway. When does primitive weapon? When will that start with the primitive weapons, Adam?
November the 9th.
I'm putting
9th,
it
10th,
on
11ish.
Yeah,
something along those lines.
See, I got it right here. Got the regs right here.
I didn't mean to put everybody on the spot there. Sorry about that.
Yeah, it's just the date changes every year. I can't remember what date.
November 11th through 22nd.
Yeah,
okay.
The 11th.
It'll be right here, and hopefully it'll cool off. Like we said, it looks like a little relief coming next week. I think they're saying next Tuesday is finally going.
Hopefully by November 11th we'll have a cool
we
front.
certainly hope so.
Maybe a frost. Maybe even a frost by then.
They're claiming a cold front next Tuesday, so we'll see where that goes. All right, William, thank you, man. Appreciate you coming in here today.
You're welcome.
And visiting with us. And we're going to talk about Mississippi Outdoors TV coming up here in just a few minutes, and where they're going and what's happening on this Thursday night show. So we'll talk about that when we come back here on Mississippi Outdoors Radio. Is always brought to you by the Foundation for Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. Hang on. And Adam Butler, this week is the 30th season of Mississippi Outdoors TV, isn't it?
Yeah, hard to believe. You know, we had the guys on a couple of weeks ago talking about that and some of the memories and with Melvin and others. But, yep, this Thursday will start the 30th season of Mississippi Outdoors.
That's amazing.
Yep. And it's going to be interesting, JT. They're going to be doing something a little bit different to kick off the 30th season. They're going on a canoe float down the Mississippi with the Call. Am I saying that right, Chris?
It's pretty close, I think.
Call Canoe Company. And it's going to actually, usually on the television show, if you've watched it, they divide it up into different segments, usually 2 or 3 segments. So the whole show is going to be about this float trip. And I was talking with, before we came over here, talking with the video guys, Scooter and those guys, and man, he's really excited about this. He said this episode turned out like way better than he could have possibly imagined. It's going to be one of the better ones he thinks that they've had a long time. They're floating the Mississippi River. 2-part series, float the Mississippi River from Rosedale to Greenville in homemade wooden canoes, camping out on the sandbars, 4 days, 3 nights, 100 miles down the Big Muddy.
That's a long trip in this kind of temperature.
Yeah, I wonder what time of year they did that. I would imagine it's probably springtime.
Yeah, I didn't ask, and I remember
early
him
summer,
talking about them doing it.
Or maybe fall, I don't know.
Yeah, usually they film stuff like a year in advance, so they filmed it a while ago, but
I've run into that cool. More times than you would probably imagine. Like working in the field, I worked in a county that was along the Mississippi River back in my patrolling days, and I remember a few times you would see, you're used to like kind of picking out boats on the horizon, and it looks like a log just floating down the river. And so you see it, but then you get a little closer and it looks like people, and you think, what in the world are these folks doing? And so you go up and and I've talked to people who've actually started in Minnesota.
Wow.
And it floated and I've run into a bunch of people who like are floating from Memphis to New Orleans, and you what are you going to do when you get to New Orleans? Well, yeah, we can't repeat that on air. But like the people that started in Minnesota, they started out, it was like snowing, like freezing cold weather. And it's just
an adventure right there.
Yeah. I mean, that's taking it back old school.
Huck Finn or something.
You'd
have to have it so planned out. Like you'd have to have like all your food like delivered somewhere or something. You'd have to.
Yeah, they had people on land that were taking their trucks and trailers down river by land to the next boat ramp, and they'd pull in and they'd stay like camp, or maybe get a hotel room if there wasn't any accessible places. Public, can't go trespassing everywhere, but. It was very interesting. They had those canoes loaded down. There's not a whole lot of shower facilities up and down the Mississippi River, so you try to stay upwind. But I mean, that's the reality of it.
Yeah,
you get. I mean,
I've never done that. I've never done any floating on.
That'd be
a
cool episode though to watch.
I've canoed, a lot of a lot of your South Mississippi creeks and stuff.
Right.
I've overnighted on Black Creek, which is a great float down in South Mississippi, and then of course a lot of people go to Okatoma there in Covington or.
And
Covington, Lamar,
yeah, it's Covington County.
Yeah.
I think there was an article in the Mississippi Outdoors magazine, this current issue about this canoe company. Quapaw. Yeah, I don't know.
Quapaw. They make their own canoes, JT, out of a tree.
I think you and William and Chris, all three, should get in a canoe and float the Mississippi and let them document it. That'd be must-see TV right there.
That'd be a big old canoe, man.
It'd take a pretty big one, wouldn't it?
Like a 20-footer.
We probably wouldn't be friends by the time it was over.
Yeah, I would think if you did that, you would obviously have to have a lot of help on the land. That's for sure.
But if anybody has a wild hair to go do something like that, think that through a little bit better than just running out there, getting a canoe and jumping in the river, because the river is not a place to.
Right. And these are big canoes.
Lightly.
The canoes that they make are like not your standard size canoe. They're a lot bigger than normal.
Well, if it's built out of a tree, sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking forward. I'm going to tune in. So you can tune in. TV show is Thursday nights at 7:30 on Mississippi Public Broadcasting, and then re-airs Saturdays at 5:30. So I'm actually. Yeah. We usually Facebook it up.
You can Facebook it. Okay.
I'm gonna set my alarm to remind me to watch this one. Yeah. It's gonna be cool, man. They're fish, the whole thing.
Living off the land.
Sunrise,
called
sunset
roughing
over
it.
the river.
Called roughing
Can't
it.
see that stuff in the front of the TV and the concrete.
Old Mark
palace.
Twain or something.
I would imagine it would be pretty intimidating to be in a canoe on the Mississippi River.
Stuff gets real big real quick. Like
you'd feel small.
Yeah. I mean, that river is huge.
I wonder what you do when the barges come by. You kind of got to.
You paddle real fast. You stay out of the middle of the channel.
I know. It's a trip just to go through a lock on the 10-ton in a bass boat. Okay, I mean that's your first time to do it. It's a little whoa, but after you do it, so I couldn't imagine being on the Mississippi in a canoe.
Hang around the banks, I imagine.
Yep.
I imagine you do stay pretty close to the bank. I think you would have to, wouldn't you? With the barges and everything.
I would think.
All right, gentlemen, thank you for being here with us. And Megan, thank you for coming in as well. And we'll do it again next Monday.